20 glauben! 30!
Insilla.
30 unum! 30 duo!
Satis. Prova e stud.
Quale?
Prima so parvo.
Gusta! Gusta!
Qui faci!
Schifamento la magna!
For nearly 2,000 years, this Roman hill has held a special place in the hearts of the world's Catholics. This is the Vatican. Every year, millions of people flock to its chapels and museums. But now we take you where tourists aren't allowed.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, il Vangelo di questa domenica.
It's a very nice custom, although it's very hard to see the Pope from way down in the square, and you're looking at this little figure in white up there, you know, but it's moving.
During the Crusades. Others claim it contains documents indicating that the Vatican went easy on the Nazis. And novelist Dan Brown famously speculated that the archives might hold proof that Jesus Christ actually fathered a child. When he sent the letter, the Civil War was raging. Confederate soldiers had invaded the North. The Union had suffered more than 250,000 casualties, yet Lincoln makes no mention of the bitter, deadly conflict. The Pope is capable of influencing the world's 1.1 billion Catholics who live in every corner of the globe. And that makes him a powerful ally.
The influence of the Holy See across the world is quite profound. We really have to think about the presence of Catholics worldwide.
The advantages of getting the Pope on your side may seem obvious now, but it wasn't always this way. America was created by men who fought and bled for the freedom to worship as they pleased. The Founding Fathers wanted little to do with the Vatican.
The Catholic Church was seen as a repressive institution, anti-enlightenment. There was still this suspicion that the Pope represented this kind of worldwide conspiracy that would suppress freedoms that these new Americans had fought so hard for.
America's distrust of the Vatican continued well into the 19th century. In 1850, Pope Pius IX donated a marble stone to be used in the building of the Washington Monument. The night it arrived, an angry anti-Catholic mob grabbed the papal stone, defaced it, and threw it into the Potomac River. Over the years, the White House kept its distance from the Vatican, suspicious of the Pope's power. Those fears came to a head in 1960 when John F. Kennedy made his run for the White House as only the second Catholic major party nominee. Some voters feared he would become a puppet of the Pope.
Your church has stated that it has the privilege and the right and the responsibility to direct its members in various areas of life, including the political realm.
I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president, who happens also to be a Catholic. I do not speak for my church on public matters, and the church does not speak for me. And no power or threat of punishment could cause me to decide otherwise.
In the closest presidential election in over 40 years, Kennedy edges Nixon in the polls. 8 months later, Camelot comes to the Vatican. When he arrives in Rome, Kennedy gets an enthusiastic reception. But back in America, some are still worried.
There were debates in terms of his Catholic identity. There are legitimate concerns when it comes to the First Amendment and the separation of church and state.
Kennedy knows the eyes of the country are on him. When he meets the Pope, he does not kiss the papal ring as is customary. Instead, Kennedy offers his hand. Americans get the message. He will not put his religion ahead of his country. But Kennedy does help thaw tensions between America and the Vatican.
Some have argued that had John F. Kennedy not been assassinated, perhaps the second term might have led to a more formalizing of relationships.
What eventually brings the White House and the Vatican together is the threat of nuclear annihilation. As the Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union pushes the superpowers to the brink of World War III, the Vatican proves it can be of strategic value to the U.S. President Ronald Reagan first visits Pope John Paul II in June of 1982. The conservative politician and the Polish priest soon realize they share a common conviction, that communism is a threat to human rights all over the world.
Many historians see these two figures as coming together as a result of a common purpose. And clearly, you know, the fall of communism and the fall of the Berlin Wall. And there was a lot of resonance there between these two world figures.
While Reagan intimidates the Soviets with a missile buildup, Pope John Paul secretly meets with the U.S. CIA chief. The Soviets respond by using Eastern European priests to infiltrate the Vatican and spy on the Pope. Soon after, in 1984, the United States opens its own embassy in the Vatican. 5 years later, the Berlin Wall crumbles, and a new chapter is opened in Vatican-U.S. relations.
So we are a little bit over 27 years now, we have had formal diplomatic relations.
Over the years, the Vatican has proven to be a valuable intelligence source. No other global organization has citizens already living and working in nearly every country on Earth. The Pope has eyes and ears everywhere.
This is what makes this relationship a great place to listen to the world. And this is why precisely this is called a great listening post. The communication can produce much needed information in times of crisis, but also in times of peace and tranquility.
For American intelligence operatives, this listening post has become a very important resource. And once again, America and the Vatican find themselves facing a common enemy. In 2008, Osama bin Laden issues a death threat against Pope Benedict.
لهذه الرسوم والتي جاءت في إطار حملة صليبية جديدة وكان لباب الفاتيكان باع طويل فيها.
Ironically, for all the earlier fears about President Kennedy's Catholic loyalties, It's a Methodist commander-in-chief who gets coziest with the Pope.
George W. Bush met several times with both John Paul II before his death, and then with the newly elected Pope, Pope Benedict XVI. These were men of two vastly different churches, two different denominations, but they shared this common Christian worldview and commitment to what they saw as universal values that formed this kind of joint bulwark against radical Islam in an age of terrorism. This was a key alliance.
On April 16, 2008, President Bush actually hosts a birthday party for Pope Benedict on the White House lawn.
George Bush, he really pulled out all the stops, and it was a fabulous visit. I'll never forget it. Not too many popes have had a birthday party at the White House. I think it comes down to one.
It's a scene our founding fathers could never have imagined, and proof of how far the relationship between America and the Vatican has come. Day breaks over the Vatican as the Holy City prepares to receive another 30,000 daily visitors. But while St. Peter's Square begins to fill with tourists, high above, the Pope's personal staff helps him to prepare for the most sacred of rituals. This is the Supreme Pontiff's private chapel. Every day at 7 a.m., the Holy Father celebrates a private Mass. Benedict XVI is the 265th Pope in a line of popes that stretches back nearly 2,000 years.
The word Pope didn't even come into usage until several centuries after Christ. It's a word based on the Greek for papa, for father, and the Pope is the Holy Father. It's really a term of honor. He is the vicar of Christ, the one who stands in the place of Christ on earth.
The Pope is also the head of state for the government of the worldwide church, known as the Holy See. The Holy See is run by cardinals, men handpicked by the Pope. They're not named after the bird. The bird is named after them. The bright red symbolizes the blood they're willing to spill in service of the Holy Father.
Nobody can run a agglomeration of 1.1 or 1.2 billion souls around the world. So they have this kind of management superstructure. The reason you need a pope is you need someone to be the ultimate arbiter, the referee, the umpire, who's going to call balls and strikes.
His Holiness also acts as chief diplomat for the Church, calling upon world leaders and exerting the Catholic influence on those in power. In 2008, Pope Benedict traveled to New York to address the United Nations. While there, he borrows the President's Marine helicopter and is assigned Secret Service protection. It was only the 4th time a Pope visited the international body, and Benedict received quite a reception. The Pontiff also spreads the gospel to the world's 1.1 billion Catholics, and wherever he goes, the faithful flock to see him.